Friday night, DNI Tulsi Gabbard released bombshell declassified documents proving that Barack Obama fabricated the Russiagate hoax to destroy Donald Trump's first presidency and U.S. relations with Putin's Russia. She referred John Brennan, Jim Clapper, Jim Comey, and others to the Department of Justice for prosecution. Now, many of the president's supporters have become cynical after being pummeled in a weeks-long campaign by his enemies that said he would never dismantle the deep state, that he had sold out. But Tulsi refuted all that last night when she wrote, quote, "Their goal was to usurp President Trump and subvert the will of the American people. No matter how powerful, every person involved in this conspiracy must be investigated and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The integrity of our democratic republic depends on it." I'm Barbara Boyd, and I know personally from my experience with Lyndon LaRouche that the denizens of the modern British financial empire, our enemy, will attempt to kill or destroy anyone who advocates the American system's economic principles, which President Donald Trump is now ruthlessly and successfully implementing. Today, I'm going to highlight key parts of Tulsi's document bomb, which shows you why the other big developments of this week occurred. The Wall Street Journal's Nothing Burger hit piece on Trump on Thursday was their attempt to obscure Tulsi's Obama revelations, which they knew were coming. I'll end by showing you again key parts of the Jeffrey Epstein story and why the full nature of his activities might never be known, no matter how much the DOJ tries to reveal them. But before I get started, if you haven't already, please go to the Promethean Action website and subscribe. While lots of you thank us for these updates, sharing these videos and subscribing builds the community we need to win. Now, all roads lead back to Barack Obama. Tulsi Gabbard's bombshell last night about Russiagate is only part of a much larger case now being constructed at the Department of Justice, which will call to account everyone involved in the 10-year coup against Donald Trump and the American people, what we have endured over the last 10 years. Last night's release shows that the intelligence community did not believe that the Russians interfered in the 2016 election in any substantial way. They include the statement, and I quote, that the FBI and NSA have low confidence in the attribution of the DNC data leaks to Russia. That means that both the FBI and NSA didn't believe that Russian hacks of the DNC and John Podesta's computers resulted in the disclosures to WikiLeaks, which formed the entire initial basis of Russiagate. Gabbard also says that she can show that the intelligence community knew that British MI6 agent Christoper Steele's dirty dossier about Donald Trump, which resulted in FISA warrants surveilling the Trump campaign, was completely unreliable and a scam. The CIA and Obama White House also knew that Hillary Clinton was involved in a campaign to smear Trump as a Russian agent in order to cover for their own crimes. They learned this via an intercept from Russian intelligence. But instead of aborting Hillary's smear campaign, John Brennan launched an all-out investigation to find out how the Russians found them out. Brennan, Jim Clapper, and James Comey, on Barack Obama's direct orders, concocted an entirely new intelligence assessment in December, removing dissenters from the analytical team. They now claimed with absolute certainty the reverse, that the Russians interfered dramatically in the 2016 election to support Donald Trump, attaching the bogus British Steele dossier, which they knew to be bogus, as their proof. Gabbard, in televised comments on Fox last night, said this was just the first step in an entire series of disclosures, which will come now on a continuing basis. The president last week also launched a major campaign throughout the week against Fed Chair Powell and the Federal Reserve's sabotage of the nation's economic agenda. Most people know that the Fed is the key British imperial control point over our economy. True to the position he holds, Fed Chair Powell is an avowed enemy of Trump's American system economics and their tariff protectionism. He and the Fed remain loyal to the globalist free trade regime. despite the fact that Trump is proving every day that that system is a failure and his American system policies are creating growth and success. Powell has stated that the Fed would have lowered interest rates by now, except for its opposition to Trump's economic policies. He keeps forecasting inflationary impacts for tariffs, which don't exist. He's using interest rates to grow the debt and subvert Trump's economic revolution. On July 10th, OMB Director Russ Vought publicly challenged Powell about his $2.5 billion spend renovating the Federal Reserve building. Russ questions cost overruns and whether the taxpayer should be paying. This scandal, in turn, opened a media space where the Fed's opponents could go wild. They ridiculed the Fed's incompetent economic assessments and its huge bailouts and enrichment operations for Wall Street and foreign banks. The big banks have parked over $30 trillion at the Fed instead of loaning it out to build the economy. They park the money solely to profit from Powell's current high interest rates, and 48% of the funds the Fed is paying out in interest goes to foreign banks. President Trump says he's not going to fire Powell right now, but he is clearly conducting a bold educational campaign which aims to regain the president's sovereign control of the American economy. Now, concerning the Wall Street Journal's Jeffrey Epstein nothing burger. It was just the most recent blast in a months-long campaign to break Trump's supporters away from the president. That campaign by the very people who staged the coup has included frantic and overlapping operations to trap the president into continuing the Ukraine war, claims that he has sold out to neocons in Israel, and claims that he was covering up Epstein's client list and his murder. It seems like the last one was the only one which had any stick to it. Our imperial enemies were and are in deep panic about Trump's economic success and implementation of his promise to create a self-sufficient, modern industrial powerhouse in which workers thrive. They knew that the deep state cleansing was his next step, and they were attempting to stall or abort it. In their Nothing Burger story, the journal claims to reveal the contents of a body letter Donald Trump signed in 2003 for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday, as if anyone outside the chattering classes and Trump haters in both political parties care about this. The letter, they say, is part of a binder of letters assembled by Ghislaine Maxwell and is in the Justice Department's possession. They don't produce the actual letter or say what Trump hater in the DOJ gave it to them. Its language is so humorously uncharacteristic of Donald Trump that even Elon Musk and Grok called it fake. One of the authors of this trash, Joe Palazzo, got his start with a publication called Main Justice, run by Mary Jacoby, the wife of Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS. That was the firm, if you remember, that Hillary Clinton hired to run the full spectrum information warfare operation against Trump's 2016 campaign, known again as Russiagate. Their hoax relied on British agent Christoper Steele's completely made-up claim that President Trump was being sexually blackmailed by Putin for sexual acts at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Moscow. Palazzo also promoted the Stormy Daniels sex hoax against Trump, resulting in the equally fake criminal trial in which Trump was convicted for 34 bookkeeping entries which described legal settlement payments to Stormy Daniels as legal payments. President Trump knew this story was coming, so you can see why he was so angry and frustrated last week with his supporters' apparent fixation on Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I'm going to tell you why the Jeffrey Epstein intelligence mystery will probably remain no matter what the Justice Department does. Jeffrey Epstein's black address book of contacts, the flight logs for his plane, and reams of media pieces and books about him are readily available and have been for a very long time. That's why President Trump has said that this story is old and mostly already told. But many folks believe our deep state is a linear entity, like a Venn diagram, with clear lines of authority, and then if you show the relationships in the diagram, you'll find who really runs the country. But under our Constitution, the citizens have the responsibility for running the country. The real question before us is why we have abdicated that role. Now, Mike Benz conducted hours of internet education last week about Jeffrey Epstein. And if you want to know more, I urge you to watch that. He showed that the story here is not about Epstein's private sexual perversions. It's about his deep relationship with various elite financiers and intelligence agencies in the business of laundering and profiting from dirty money and covert intelligence operations. Relationships which are deliberately cloaked in secrecy to give his sponsors what is called plausible deniability. I'll be doing a summary of what we already know in a post on our website this week, but it's unlikely that the real story will ever be fully told. So, what we've showed you here is the events behind the surface drama of the last week. President Trump needs the social media folks who support him, educating the American people about the American system and the road to economic success. He knows people don't fully understand this, and that lack of understanding endangers both the midterms and the turbulent road ahead. To Trump, focusing on Epstein, who he kicked out of Mar-a-Lago years ago, is akin to chasing ghosts, who you will never catch. The failed Wall Street Journal hit these. It shows you who the Journal, Fox, and others occasionally posing as Trump Republicans really are. As you may know by now, Susan Kokinda and I will be doing a new live show on July 31st. So go again to the website and subscribe. Start thinking now about what you want to ask us because we'll be trying to answer all your questions. I'll see you again on Monday.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at prometheanaction.com.